I'll stand back here. You should. You all ready? All right. Well, good morning. Thank you all for being here. Just wanted to highlight some issues that are going to be up this week in the Florida House. The Florida House and legislature in general has a history of taking strong stands on issues of international importance that we think Florida should be the leader on. And you go look at the last several years, we've taken outspoken stances on issues involving Cuba, Iran, this year Venezuela, and then this week we're going to address two bills that deal with Israel. One is House Bill 545 by Representatives Fine and Moskowitz, and House Bill 1027, also by Representatives Fine and Moskowitz. And they're both here this morning to speak directly to the issues of that bill. We'll start off with House Bill 545 with Representative Fine.
Thank you, Chairman Caldwell, and thanks to all of you for coming. Look, I want to start by recognizing the courage of both Speaker Corcoran and Representative Caldwell for taking on these pieces of legislation. They've both been incredibly helpful and supportive of me and encouraging me to do it, and if these bills become law, it will be in no small part because of the two of them. Look, House Bill 545 addresses a real problem that we have in Florida, which is the belief by some that it is okay to engage in state-focused religious discrimination of the State of Israel. And in case you believe this is not a problem, I want to give you a specific example that's going on right now in the state of Florida. In December, right before the end of the year, Lorde, a musician, announced that she was canceling a concert in Tel Aviv because of her concerns over the so-called Palestinian issue. She did not cancel concerts in Russia that she had, where one might argue there are other issues that one might have a problem with. And that's the issue with this notion of this boycott, divestiture, sanctions movement. It holds Israel to standards that are not held by other countries. Well, Lorde is coming to Florida in April 11th and April 13th. So that's why it's important for the legislature to take a stand that says it is not okay for government to conduct business with groups that choose to have these discriminatory and anti-Semitic positions. So I'm excited that the bill will be up this week in committee, and I'll be happy when we're done here to answer any questions that you have about it. Thank you.
Excellent. And to talk about House Bill 1027, Representative Moskowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the Speaker for being here today. The Speaker, not just this year, but long has, on a bipartisan basis, supported these sort of issues year after year, especially when he was Chairman of Appropriations, and we passed, obviously, the first BDS bill and became the first state in the nation to lead on the boycott divestment issue. The 1027 resolution came out actually from some of the language that Congressman Gates filed in Washington, D.C., dealing with UNESCO. For those of you who don't know about UNESCO, UNESCO is an organization that came out when the UN was founded. They specifically look at historical connections and look at scientific issues. And it's no longer a body that the United States belongs to. Because we were removed as a voting member, and when we removed our funding due to the anti-Semitic acts year after year after UNESCO. What UNESCO is doing now is they are trying to undermine the significance of Jerusalem and Israel to the Jewish people, basically trying to undermine the entire state of Israel. And so that language on UNESCO is something that Congressman Gates and I worked on and filed dual bills. He filed, obviously, in the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., and I filed it here as a resolution. Additionally, while I was working on that, the federal government announced that they would be making an announcement on the capital of Israel and a unified Jerusalem, with future plans to move the embassy to Jerusalem. Many may remember that this actually has been the policy on a bipartisan basis of Congress going back now 20 years when they passed the bill to move the embassy to Jerusalem. However, it gave presidents the ability to delay that every 6 months. This administration, this federal government, has said that we're no longer going to delay the bipartisan action of Congress of moving the embassy to Jerusalem. This resolution supports the federal government's action to move the embassy to Jerusalem. And so I just want to thank you. I'll be here to answer any questions, and I want to thank the gentlemen behind me for their support on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to thank, obviously, Representative Fine, Representative Moskowitz for their work. There's no question that throughout the course of the latter part of the 20th century and throughout today, Israel has been one of our greatest allies. And anywhere that we have gone and partnered with Israel in an attempt to stomp out evil in the world and create fairness and justice and hopefully a world of peace, they've been a partner throughout the entire process. I think both of these bills move us forward, and as a state, in letting it be known that we recognize this relationship, we value this relationship. We will be there as a state to defend them in any way, shape, or form we can. In addition to that, as Representative Moskowitz said, a policy that's been on the books for decades, finally, thanks to President Trump, has been recognized, and we want to send a resolution saying that we support you in that, finally recognizing after two decades what has been for 3,000 some years. You know, you go all the way back to Judea or Samaria, land that was of the Israelites and the Jewish people, and so recognizing that finally as the capital of Israel, I think was long overdue, and we applaud the President for those actions, and applaud Representative Moskowitz for his resolution, as well as Representative Fine for taking the bill that we initially did and now dropping that down to any dollar spent. I think is a move that's positive. So it's a great day. We'll hopefully have a great week here on the floor, and if you have any questions, I'm sure we'll be able to answer them.
545 passes. Does the board have to cancel it for?
It's a fair question. It's questionable that Lord may already have to cancel that concert today, and it wouldn't be Lord that would be canceling. Under the law today, no local government can conduct business of $1 million or more with someone who's engaged in a boycott of Israel, which Lord is. The two facilities where Lord will be performing are both publicly owned, so it's unclear. We don't know at this point whether the contracts are $1 million or less. Certainly, if my bill goes into law, it won't matter. Any other questions?
There are a couple representatives here from different faiths. There's a bill coming up just passed a House committee that would require public schools to put hijab vests on their buildings. Just curious to get some reaction, from legislators of different faiths, if you had any opposition to it or think it's a good idea.
Go ahead.
No, listen, it's the motto in our currency, motto of our nation. I don't see any problem with it whatsoever, and it's a foundational principle of this nation. We certainly respect and treasure the diversity that we have in this country, but since the very beginning, even before our nation was created, we've had that recognition. It's religious freedom is why people came to this country, because they felt so strongly. So I certainly think it's a good idea and would support it.
I'll speak real quick as someone who is obviously a religious minority. Jews make up about 2% of the population in the United States, and I grew up in a place where I was usually the only Jewish person in my class. And so, but I think it's important for people to know that the First Amendment is freedom to practice religion, not freedom from religion. And people get that wrong. And as someone whose grandmother came to America in order to be Jewish after 9 of her brothers and sisters and both of her parents were killed in Russia, that's why she came here. Not to be protected from religion, it was to be protected from a state that wouldn't let her practice her religion. So I applaud the effort to add that to the walls, and I hope it's successful.
With so many, with the multitude of state issues pressing on the legislature and on state governments, why is this issue of Israel, of America's relation to Israel, an appropriate issue for the legislature?
Listen, you know what it takes for evil to prosper? Good men to stand by and do nothing. We are a state. We have a role. We can play a role in recognizing that they are one of our greatest allies of all time since the existence of our country and the existence of Israel, and after being recognized by the UN resolution. Despite the UN resolution. So us being able to go out there and help bring about, and honestly, why is there no peace? If we didn't do this and we didn't recognize the capital of Jerusalem, any of those things, would there be peace in Israel? No. But would there be peace in Palestine, or would there be peace in neighboring countries if these things? Yes. They are a advocate and a fighter with us for peace throughout the world and justice. And so to the extent that they're being persecuted, or the United States throughout the world in different countries is persecuted, our flags burned, and we're targets. because we're out there and we're fighting for what is true and what is just. And so to the extent that Florida can take a stand and say we are going to hold people responsible with their investments if they're a part of the BDS movement, we're going to recognize that Jerusalem is the capital, which we've already done de facto a long time ago. We just didn't do it formally. Those are good things that we should be involved in. We should get out there and help. And if every single state did this, if every single country participated in this, you're putting a tremendous amount of pressure for people to say, this is how you bring about peace in a region. And the greatest threat to those other countries in those regions, to the bulk of those Sunni nations, they know it's not Israel. Ask them. They will tell you that the greatest threat is a nuclear Iran. And who is the absolute forefront every single day when they wake up and when they go to bed and when they're sleeping, who has to face that consequence of a nuclear Iran and who leads that fight and leads that battle? It's Israel. They deserve all our support in every way. And so do the people of that region. It's not us just saying that we recognize them as a partner with us and as an ally with us and as a group who understands good and evil and what that role plays in the world. It's also us looking out for the populations and the masses of those people in that region who are going to be oppressed and victimized and ultimately face, as we see, war-ravaged countries. That's what we're fighting for everybody by doing these kinds of changes. Whether they recognize it or not, that's what the people will benefit.
Can you take a off-topic question?
Yes, I will be at Prescott's tonight. Anyone else?
In light of what happened, seriously, in light of what happened in court last week, what is your strategy going forward with Matt and Mr. Roberts?
Our general counsel's had good conversations with them. Finally, they're talking. Finally, they're a lot more earnest now that they know there's a club. And we have always given them due process. We've always given them an opportunity to be heard. But we will never, ever back down from the fact that we are the protectors of the purse. There's a tremendous amount of money, over $10 million that's been expended, and we don't have answers. To the extent that we have those answers, great. And to the extent that up to this point, the great depths and lengths that they've gone to keep us from having those answers is not a good sign. And so he's in negotiations and has been talking to counsel saying, give us all the documents we're asking for. And if we don't, we'll continue to pursue it, every mode, every facet that we have. And we would not rule out, as we passed off the House floor, the appropriate punishments that are available to us.
Can you address the comment made by his lawyer at the point that you're a king, you can do whatever you want in Florida House? You know, comment like that.
I didn't know about it.
Speaker is king.
Well, I mean, I guess he's got his 50 minutes of fame. Good for him.
So
About the negotiations.
People that are alarmed by the bright line deaths that occurred lately are calling for, there's legislation that would have DOT, Florida Department of Transportation, play a much greater role in evaluating these rail crossings and basically stuck into this law as a state. Do you have any problem with that from the House point of view?
I think no. The first role of government is to protect its people and keep them safe. So obviously, I've had numerous and have more conversations today, this afternoon, with some of the legislators affected, and we'll look on how do we move forward in keeping people safe in partnership with local governments, the private sector, and ourselves. And if hopefully we can get to obviously a better place than where we are today, and trying to keep people safe.
What would you say to any state agency that might be holding on to public records that the reason why they're not honoring the public records request is because it's part of that subpoena? Should they be holding on to these records, or should they be forcing them over?
Say it again, Eric. What agencies are doing what?
DEO is actually holding on to some public records request of mine because part of this information is actually in the subpoena that your GC requested.
I think that if you're a government entity, I think we've been very clear from the get-go. Disclose, be transparent, don't fear accountability. To the extent they have public records that are encouragement to all agencies, including ourselves, to release those documents as quickly and as transparently as possible.
Can you give us the odds on whether the House and the Senate will do any kind of gaming legislation this session?
Yes, it's somewhere between 1% and 99% certainty. But that's all gaming bills. I'm not, Jim, honestly, I said to someone the other day, gaming is the one issue. If you said to me, hey, what's the likelihood that we're going to see a higher ed bill? I could say to you, I think that right now I'd say 85%. What's the likelihood we're going to see another K-12 bill out of the House? 85%. What's the likelihood you're going to see a gaming bill? It's one of those few issues where it's every single day it's either 1% or 99%. I mean, so I tell people I don't want to tell them 1% because then they'll think I don't need to be vigilant and something's never going to happen. No, those dams could break at any moment in time, and all of a sudden you have everybody on the same page, and then at the same time it's one of the hardest things that we ever try to accomplish, as by the fact that we've had 1% less than 1% success for the past 7 years I've been here. So I just don't know. Those conversations are constantly going on. Last year we got to a point where we were in conference and got very close. Is it possible we could get back to a conference posture and get closer? Yes, and all those other things that have been transpiring, whether it's in the courts or constitutional amendments, I think are continuing to give us additional leverage points to where we can hopefully get to a position that the House has held, and that is we would love to have a long-standing 20, 30-year certainty of what gaming looks like for the face of Florida. At the same time, we would like to see there be a contraction, given what our makeup is as a family value state. But I have 11 o'clock lunch. Appreciate it.
As state budgets come out this.
Yep, we got to wrap up 11 o'clock. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.